So just sort of I might introduce Miao, who is Miao Wang is with CNVM Investments, a Chinese company which is developing a processing facility and feedlot in central Queensland, and has somehow successfully crossed the bridge or held the bridge together between the Australian culture and the Chinese culture to get the project developing so well. And I wanted to Miao, we've worked together for three years, I think.
Yes.
And I've seen you handle many, many difficult situations and resolve them between China and Australia so well. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice for us. How do you work to build the bridge between the Chinese investors and Chinese buyers and the Australian interests? How have you been successful in that, or what examples do you have for that?
Well, I think the most example is between Darren and I working together. And so I had an experience before I worked with Darren. So Chinese company doesn't like to pay consultant fee by ongoing base. So after I met with Darren, we redesigned the whole charging facilities. So instead of doing the ongoing base, we set up a fixed rate. So the project charge will based on stages, so which will be fit for both culture and make everyone comfortable. And I think Chinese culture, and it's more Chinese company doesn't like to pay too much consultant fee or professional fee, especially they want to know how much in exact. They want to put an exact amount in the budget, but not an ongoing amount, which is unpredictable. So I think we work very well with Darren to get that fixed. So that's a very good example.
And I also find that with Miao that as soon as we agree a fixed price, it is paid before I issue the bill. So she's very good in making sure that people who work with her are happy working with her, which is a great compliment. And Miao, have you found that with various other consultants, etc., and other relationships, that you've been able to find that certainty that Chinese need?
So I just try to firstly we try to invite the mayor to go over to China to understand the business and to understand what we're doing, and keep communication as much as possible. And also we will give lots of information to the council and to tell them what we need to be able to get a project to be able to move on. And because we're doing agriculture business, so I think the most important thing for a foreign investor is to understand the industry you are going to invest. That's a key thing. If you don't really understand the key points to be success, I guess it's hard for you to move any further stages. So, for example, agriculture agriculture industry in China and in Australia are totally different. And when you're talking about water licensing in China, people probably would never understand what that means, because that's never been issued. And but in Australia, it's a crucial thing for agriculture business to be success. So it took me a long time to be able to educate the Chinese part to understand this bit. But firstly, it also took me a long time to understand what's water and the different water resources in local area too. So, and I always telling people, if you really want to do want to do one industry, or want to jump into an industry that you never work on in the past, you have to learn by yourself.
So you've done a lot of taking the mayor and other people to China to help them understand how Chinese business operates.
Yeah, and I also took Chinese people came over. My people from China came over to do a hands-on visit in Hillingdon. So I don't give them a pretty good trip. I guess I'm pretty tough. And they have to be they have to stay with me and on the car and drive like 6 hours a day on the road and to go to different farms to see the local people to understand what they're doing in real. So that's my my way to show people. It, for example, when when Mayor asked me how to trade guests from China and how to trade the government people from China, I told them just show them everything naturally. Just show them your daily works, and that's the best way. Don't try to pretending or treat them differently by your own people. I think they need to, yeah. So whoever want to invest in that area need to understand the people over there, need to understand the real life over there.
And how do you handle, say, issues of Mianzi, where you might have your investors come across to Australia and the Australian people may do things that are not, that they would not understand, might affect face, things like that?
In fact, face, not really, to be honest.
Good.
I think language is a big barrier. So, I guess the overseas investor, the Chinese investor, need to find a good interpreters. It's
Yes.
the interpreter they can trust. Otherwise, they will never get the information they want.
Yeah.
And from Western way, I don't see anything is too much of a or too difficulty to communicate with, because I stay here over almost 20 years and I'm in a Western country over 20 years now. So I found out most of the time you just need to tell what you want. So Chinese people sometimes they don't like to say no. But in Western way, if you don't want it or if you don't think that's okay, just say no and don't always say yes and consider about it. That's a big culture problem in between.
Yeah.
And I found out that when I talked to business people when I brought business people from China, if they first time came to Western country and they try to do a business with Western people, they really like to say yes to everyone. And they really think there will be a opportunity in the future, which I try to tell them, no, don't always say yes if you can't fulfill your promise or fulfill your commitment. And it's always okay to say no at the beginning and say yes later. This is the Western way.
Yes. Which is quite a big difference, I think, isn't it?
Where for the Chinese is this is face, Darren, you mentioned, where if they say no, they feel they're not giving the others face or respect. They think it might make them feel rejected or refused, so they wanted to do it. But it's much better you do it the other way around, as Miao was saying. You say no first, and then if there's real possibilities, then you communicate that later. Yeah, no, that's great advice.
And you need to be very careful who you're dealing with. And China is big, and there are too many provinces and too many companies. And even though you probably have a chance to deal with government-owned or state-owned companies, and they are still different layers. So you have to get a better understanding of what's going on over there too, and who you are dealing with. And it's very important. Not everyone can make decision. That's my another opinion.
Yes.
Yeah. So get to work or know the real decision maker, and then work with them. Yeah.
And I also understand the personality of who you deal with. They really want to do something, or they have another thoughts of what they're doing.
Right, right. So they might have other agenda, they might have other things that behind the scenes. So you could ended up working, investing a lot of time and effort, but then it won't go anywhere because their motivation is different from yours.
That's right. I had a bad experience in the past too. So try to work with. Oh, because if you open the door to as me in front of the Chinese people, I'm more like a Western people. So because I'm Australian and holding Australian passport, and
Yes.
I've been here that many years, and my company registers here. My subsidiary company registers here. So when we treat as Australian company. So I had my own experience with Chinese company too. So if you know, in the past, when I lack with experience dealing with them, and I simply just trust whatever they say. In the end, you probably won't get the result you want, and then at the same time, you rule the whole relationship in your supplying side too, because yeah. So I suggest whoever you deal with in China, you have to firstly judge them and yourself to see if they can do the things they want or not.
And Miao, you recently were asked to speak to the, I'll call it the agricultural department in China, on how to invest successfully in agriculture in Australia. Can you mention any main points you suggested to them as to how you find, how you would suggest they find success in Australia?
Yeah, I told them firstly, if they never been to Australia, the first thing is they need to get a agriculture department in China to send them to Australian embassies, to
Yes.
Chinese embassies,
Very
to
good.
talk to to talk to the right people to give them a suggestion, and they will be able to at least filter out some business for them, instead of they simply just come over and to find their mutual friends. Yeah. Some people you probably never know what they're doing in Australia, and that's very important. And secondly, I suggest them not to promise too much if they can't commit. Do not promise anything they can't commit. And third, they need to be in Australia longer.
That's very good advice. And do you have any advice for Australian people who are looking to find a Chinese partner? How can they choose a good Chinese partner?
How to choose a good Chinese partner? That's a little bit tricky, but I think if I picking a Chinese partner, I won't pick the one who says they can do everything, and I won't pick the one who says they are rich enough and to do whatever they want. And I won't pick the one who drive expensive electric car. I would like to pick someone who hand-on works. So that's my suggestion. So whoever put too much effort on buying cars or clothes, most likely they don't do much.
That's good advice, Miao. Very good advice.
That's brilliant. Yeah. No, that's wonderful, Miao. Thank you very much. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. No, that's all from me.
That's good.
Yeah, I think no doubt. I'd love to invite Miao back later for our future podcasts. I think
Would love to.
you have so much to offer, and I'm sure there's a lot you can share. Through your own journey in these last 20 years here, you must have gone through a lot of working with the Australian business community, but also bridging that and go back to China and tell the Chinese, and then work on projects here, identify them and make them also viable for the Chinese, because there's a lot of things that you have to make them right to make it really happen. So yeah, congratulations again, Miao. This is really a big achievement. So
thank you, Miao, for your time. Greatly
Thanks so
appreciate
much.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.